I used to believe a woman's heart could break only once, that once it's shattered, the pieces could never grow sharp again. But life has a way of proving you wrong in the moments you least expect, slipping a new kind of pain into the cracks you thought were already sealed. My pain came on a cold October morning, the kind when the sky feels bruised and heavy, like it's trying to hold back tears of its own. I stood at the bus terminal with a suitcase that wasn't even mine. It belonged to my daughter, a girl who no longer called me Mom unless she wanted something. That morning, she wanted space. She wanted freedom. She wanted a life where I didn't exist. She didn't say the words out loud, but she didn't have to. She had already left without looking back. I held the edge of the suitcase, staring at the empty parking lot long after her bus disappeared into the fog. It felt like I was holding the last memory of her, the last piece of proof that she had once trusted me, once needed me. The wind pushed past my shoulders like an impatient reminder that she wasn't coming back. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not ever. As I walked home alone, the houses looked smaller, meaner. The world around me felt like someone had sucked the life out of it. My own home felt colder when I opened the door. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe it was the silence that greeted me, a silence that felt like a verdict. I placed the suitcase by her bedroom door. I didn't open it. I didn't touch anything. I just stood there staring at that thin line of wood separating me from all the things she hated me for. The memories came like they always do, uninvited and sharp. The nights she spent crying when her father left. The way she clung to me like I was the last safe place she had. The years I spent working 2 jobs so she would never feel abandoned again. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes a mother's sacrifices look like chains to a child searching for an escape. That evening, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket I knitted years ago, the kind with mismatched colours that she used to drag around the house. I watched the sky turn from grey to black, a slow collapse of light, and wondered where she was, if she was scared, if she missed me at all. The worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she seemed relieved to go. The days that followed were a blur of chores I didn't care about, meals I didn't finish, and nights when sleep felt like a stranger. I kept checking my phone even though there were no missed calls, no unread messages, nothing but silence. A silence so deep it drowned everything else. Then one night, something changed. It started with a knock on the door, soft, hesitant, almost trembling. I froze, my heart leaping in my chest. I thought for a moment it might be her, coming home with regret in her eyes, maybe scared, maybe lost, maybe ready to be my daughter again. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was a woman I had never seen before. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, her hair clinging to her cheeks, and her eyes broken, like someone had taken a hammer to her soul. She clutched a small bag to her chest, like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "Please," she whispered, I didn't know where else to go." Those words carried a weight I knew too well. I didn't ask her name. I didn't ask why she came. I just stepped aside and let her in. She sat at my kitchen table while I made tea, her hands shaking as she wrapped them around the warm mug. She looked young, maybe the same age my daughter was. An age where the world should be full of possibilities, not wounds. She didn't speak right away, neither did I. Sometimes silence is the kindest thing you can offer a wounded person. When she finally lifted her head, her voice cracked. "My husband, he's looking for me. He hurt me, and he'll hurt me again if he finds me." She pulled back her sleeves, revealing bruises that made my stomach twist. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to cry. Not because of the bruises, but because I recognized the fear in her eyes. It was the same fear I once saw in my own reflection, years ago, before I gathered the courage to protect myself and my daughter from the man who broke us. "Stay here," I said gently. "No one will hurt you here." She looked at me like I had handed her the world, but what neither of us knew that night was simple. Her arrival wasn't random. Her story wasn't separate from mine. She wasn't just a stranger running from a monster. She was the beginning of the moment that would tear my life apart all over again, and she was the reason my daughter would end up on the other side of a secret so dark, so twisted, it would change everything I believed about my own blood. I didn't know her name yet, but her presence began to fill the quiet corners of the house my daughter had left behind. She moved softly, like she didn't want the floorboards to remember she was there. Sometimes I caught her staring at the door, flinching at every sound outside, her breath catching in her throat like she was swallowing a scream. I tried to make her feel safe, offering warm meals, clean clothes, and the spare bedroom where my daughter once slept. She always hesitated, touching the edge of the blankets like she didn't deserve comfort. I didn't push her. Some women need time to believe they're finally out of the storm. Eventually, she told me her name, Lena. It slipped out during breakfast, spoken like a confession rather than an introduction. Her voice was thin, worn out from too many apologies she shouldn't have had to make. She talked in fragments at first, bits of stories scattered like broken glass across the table. A slammed door, a fist, a promise twisted into a threat. Every detail made my chest tighten, not just with empathy, but with a familiar anger I hadn't felt in years. I knew the pattern too well, love that starts soft and ends in bruises. She wasn't the first woman to flee a man who believed control was affection. And if I had to guess, she wouldn't be the last. Days passed, and the house grew warmer again, not because of the heater, but because Lena started breathing like she wasn't scared to be alive. She helped with dishes, folded laundry, and sometimes sat beside me on the porch as if sharing the sunset made her less alone. She asked about my daughter once, her eyes tracing the empty rocking chair that still swung in the wind. I only said she needed time. That was easier than admitting she had left, because she thought I smothered her with rules, with caution, with fears born from my past. Lena didn't press further. She simply nodded, like she understood that every woman had a wound she didn't know how to talk about. One evening, as I was patching a hole in one of her sweaters, Lena whispered, "You didn't ask why I chose your house." Something in her tone made me pause, needle hovering mid-air. She wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were on the window, watching the darkness settle in. I waited, letting the silence open a door for her words. When she finally spoke again, her voice trembled. "Your daughter. I met her 2 weeks ago." My heart lurched. The sweater slipped from my hands. The room tilted in a way that made my breath feel heavy. I hadn't expected those two pieces of my world to collide. Lena went on before I could speak. She didn't tell me her real name. She called herself Mia. The name hit me like a bruise under old skin. My daughter had used that name when she was younger, during the years she dreamed of running away to become someone else. Hearing it now felt like a sign I wasn't ready to face. Where did you meet her?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "At the bus station," Lena said. "I was sitting alone, crying. She came over and asked if I needed help." Her eyes softened in a way that made my heart ache. "She gave me money for food, told me to find a safe place. She said if I ever got lost, I should come here." For a moment I couldn't breathe. My daughter, my stubborn, distant, angry daughter, had sent a broken woman straight to my door. She had trusted me to do what she no longer believed I could do for her. Tears stung the back of my eyes as Lena continued, her words slow and heavy with meaning. "She said her mother always helps women like me. She said you'd understand." The weight of that truth settled deep in my chest. My daughter hadn't abandoned me out of hate. She left because she felt suffocated by the shadows of my past. But she still believed in my heart. She still believed I had a purpose. She still believed I could be a refuge. I wanted to call her, wanted to tell her I knew, wanted to say thank you, but the silence between us felt too thick, too fragile to break with a phone call she might ignore. That night, Lena had her first nightmare. I heard her scream through the walls, muffled and desperate, like she was drowning in memories she couldn't escape. When I rushed into the room, she was curled on the bed, trembling so violently it looked like her body might break apart. I held her until her shaking slowed, whispering the same words I once used for my daughter, the words that carried the strength I didn't always feel. "You're safe, he can't hurt you, not here." But safety, I would learn, is a temporary illusion. The next morning, as we sat by the window sipping tea, a truck rolled slowly down the street. Lena froze, the colour draining from her face. Her fingers tightened around the mug until I feared it might shatter. The truck idled for a long moment in front of my house, engine rumbling like a low growl. I stepped closer to the window, peeking through the curtain. A man sat behind the wheel, thick shoulders, cold eyes, a stare that slid across the house like a blade. "Is that him?" I whispered. Lena didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truck eventually pulled away, but the damage was already done. The air felt thinner. The walls seemed too fragile, and for the first time since she arrived, fear crawled back into Lena's bones like a familiar disease. I placed a hand on hers, grounding her trembling fingers. "He won't get to you," I said, forcing a strength I didn't fully feel. "You're not alone in this." But deep down, I knew something had changed. The storm she fled wasn't finished with her, and it had just found its way to my door. The truck didn't come back the next day, but his presence lingered like a stain on the air. I caught Lena looking out the window every few minutes, her body tensing whenever a car slowed on the street. I tried to distract her, gave her chores, small tasks, anything that might keep her grounded in the present and not drifting into the nightmare she came from. But fear has a way of wrapping around a person's throat. It doesn't let go just because the sun is out and the door is locked. By the third day, I realised this wasn't just about protecting her from a man. This was about protecting her from what fear could turn her into. I'd seen it before. Women who became ghosts inside their own lives, existing more in memory than in reality. I decided to call the police, not because I believed they'd rush to our rescue, but because a paper trail is better than silence. Documentation is a shield, even if it's made of thin glass. I dialed with shaking fingers, feeling Lena's eyes burning into my back from across the room. I explained that a woman fleeing domestic violence was staying with me, that her abuser might have found our location, that he drove a dark truck and was circling the neighbourhood. The officer on the line sounded bored, distant, the way people do when they hear a story they've heard too many times. "Has he threatened you directly?" he asked. "Has he damaged property? Forced his way in? Without a crime, there's not much we can do. If you feel unsafe, you can file a restraining order, but it takes time." Time. That word felt like a cruel joke. Monsters don't wait for paperwork. When I hung up, Lena's face was a mix of guilt and resignation. "You shouldn't have to deal with this," she whispered. "I'm bringing trouble into your home." I stepped closer and took her hand, squeezing it tight. "Listen to me," I said. "This isn't your fault. The trouble started the day he decided your body was his property. All I did was open a door. That's not trouble, that's survival." Her eyes filled with tears she fought to hold back, her jaw clenching like she was trying not to fall apart. I knew that look. I'd worn it once myself. That night, the wind howled against the walls, rattling the windows like fingers desperate to get inside. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for every creak, every shift, every car that passed on the road outside. Sleep didn't come. Instead, memories did. My ex-husband's voice raised in fury, the way he'd slam cabinet doors hard enough to make me flinch, the way my daughter would hide behind the couch, eyes wide and silent, watching everything. I left him to save her. I built a life out of scraps, but trauma doesn't leave just because the person does. It lingers in the way you triple-check locks and make up worst-case scenarios in your head. It lived in me, and now it lived in Lena too. Around midnight, I heard a sound outside, a metallic clink, soft but deliberate. I slipped out of bed, my heart pounding, and crept to the window. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows across the lawn. At first I didn't see anything. Then I noticed the gate. It was slightly open, swaying in the wind. I knew I'd locked it before bed. A chill ran down my spine. I turned away from the window, heading toward Lena's room, when I noticed a faint glow under the front door. Someone was out there, standing close enough to block the porch light. I grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a fireplace poker, and moved quietly, my bare feet cold against the wooden floor. Lena's door cracked open behind me, her voice a sharp whisper. "Did you hear that?" I motioned for her to stay back, but she stepped closer anyway, her fear overridden by the instinct to know, to see. We both froze as a shadow shifted beneath the crack at the bottom of the door. Then came the knock. Slow, confident, not like the desperate tap she'd arrived with. This one had teeth. "Who is it?" I called out, forcing my voice to sound stronger than I felt. There was a pause, a moment where even the wind seemed to go still. Then a man's voice slid through the wood, calm and oily. "Evening, ma'am. I'm looking for my wife. I think she might have come this way." My stomach turned. Lena's grip tightened on the back of my shirt. I could feel her shaking. The voice continued. "Her name's Lena. She's confused, sick. She does this sometimes, runs off. I just want to take her home." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "No one like that is here," I said, not because I believed he'd accept it, but because denial was the first line of defence. He chuckled. That sound made my skin crawl. "That's strange," he replied. "Her phone was last tracked right around here, and I saw the light on. You sure you haven't seen her?" The way he said it told me he already knew. Predators don't ask questions they don't know the answers to. I took a step closer to the door, my voice dropping. "You need to leave, now, or I'll call the police." He went quiet. For a long, agonizing moment, I wondered if he'd try to break in, if he'd slam his shoulder against the wood, if the flimsy lock would hold. Then he spoke again, his tone colder. "The police won't get here fast enough," he murmured. "And you don't know what you've stepped into, lady. She's my wife. She belongs with me." I felt Lena flinch behind me, like the word belongs was a slap. Something inside me snapped then. Maybe it was the memory of my daughter hiding under the table. Maybe it was the years I'd spent afraid of a man who used love as a weapon. Maybe it was the fact that this time I wasn't the one being hunted. Whatever it was, it pushed fear aside just enough for rage to step forward. "She doesn't belong to anyone," I said. "And if you come near this house again, you'll regret it." The words tasted like steel. For a moment there was silence, then footsteps, retreating slowly down the porch steps. The shadow under the door disappeared. The porch light brightened again. I rushed to the window, watching as he walked back to his truck. He turned once, looking directly at the house. Even through the glass, I felt his stare like a fingerprint pressed into my skin. Then he got in, started the engine, and drove away. Lena sagged against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, her hands covering her face. Her breaths came in short gasps, like she couldn't get enough air in. I knelt beside her, wrapping my arms around her. "It's okay," I whispered, though we both knew it wasn't. "He's gone for now." She shook her head, her voice raw. "He won't stop. He'll watch. He'll wait. That's what he does. He'll hurt anyone who helps me." I wanted to argue, to tell her he was wrong, that we were stronger, that the law would protect us. But I'd be lying. I'd seen what men like him could do. I'd seen the system shrug and look away. Instead, I said something else. "Then we'll be smarter. We won't run blindly. We'll plan. You are not going back to him. Not now, not ever." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time since she arrived, I saw something flicker there besides fear, something like defiance. Later that night, after Lena finally fell asleep, I sat alone in the kitchen with my phone in my hand. My finger hovered over my daughter's contact. I wanted to hear her voice, to tell her what was happening, to ask why she sent Lena to me, what she knew. I wanted to say all the things I hadn't said when she walked away. I pressed the call button before I could overthink it. The line rang, once, twice, 3 times. Then it went to voicemail. Her recorded voice sounded younger than she was now, full of a lightness she no longer carried. "Hey, it's me. Leave a message." The beep echoed in my ear. For a moment I didn't know what to say. Then the words spilled out. "It's Mum," I began softly. "I met her, the girl from the bus station, Lena. I know you sent her. I just want you to know. I understand more than you think, and I'm trying to keep her safe. I just hope you're safe too." My voice cracked on the last word. "Call me if you can, please." I ended the call and stared at the phone, half expecting it to light up with her name. It stayed dark. Somewhere out there, my daughter was tangled in a world that connected her to this broken stranger sleeping in my house and the dangerous man who claimed to own her. I could feel it in my bones. Whatever story I thought I was in had shifted, deepened, turned darker. And I had no idea that the next time that truck appeared on my street, it wouldn't be Lena he'd be trying to take, it would be me. The next morning felt different, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I brewed coffee, though my hands trembled enough to spill some on the counter. Sleep had barely touched me, and when it did, it came in brief, fractured flashes filled with shadows on the porch and a voice whispering through the door. Lena didn't come out of her room at first. I heard her pacing, slow, dragging steps that sounded like a heartbeat trying to steady itself. When she finally emerged, her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying or sleeplessness or both. She sat across from me, pulling her knees up to her chest like a child trying to make herself smaller. I didn't pressure her to talk. Sometimes silence is the only safe place a person has, but silence doesn't last. It never does. Around noon, my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. For a split second, hope flared inside me, my daughter finally responding. But when I looked, it was an unknown number. My breath caught. I answered cautiously. A man's voice spoke, low and formal, identifying himself as a detective from another county. My stomach tightened as he asked a question that turned my blood cold. "Do you know a young woman named Lena Harper?" My eyes darted to where she sat at the kitchen table, hugging herself. "She's staying with me," I said carefully. "Why? Has something happened?" The detective hesitated, then spoke with the kind of heavy tone people use when delivering news that changes everything. "She's involved in an open investigation. We have reason to believe her husband is connected to a string of violent altercations in multiple towns. We've been trying to locate her for weeks. We're concerned for her safety." Concerned. The word felt too small. I told him she was safe with me, that her husband had found our address, that he'd already come to my door. The detective cursed under his breath. "Do not let her out of your sight," he said, "and do not open that door again. We're sending someone to you, but it may take time." Time, again with time, always time. As if danger waited politely. When I hung up, Lena's eyes were wide, terrified. "What did they say?" she whispered. I repeated the detective's words, watching her crumble into herself, her face folding with guilt and dread. She shook her head violently, her voice trembling. "He doesn't just hurt people, he destroys them, anyone who gets in his way, anyone who helps me. You don't understand. He's not just angry, he's obsessed." But I wasn't afraid of obsession. I'd lived through it. What frightened me was the emptiness in her voice, the hollow certainty that she believed she brought ruin wherever she went. I reached across the table and took her hand. "You didn't bring danger here," I said. "He did, and we're going to stop him." I believed that, or I needed to. As the hours passed, the house grew smaller. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind brushing the windows felt like a threat. I kept the curtains closed, lights low, doors locked twice. Lena followed me from room to room like a shadow. She wouldn't sit for long, couldn't stay still, kept wringing her hands until her knuckles turned white. I tried to distract her with stories about my daughter, little things, memories from when she was young, but each one made my chest ache with longing. She still hadn't called back. By nightfall, the air felt electric, charged with the kind of tension that comes before something breaks. The detective hadn't arrived. My calls to the department went unanswered. Storm clouds gathered overhead, thick and purple, swelling until thunder rolled across the town. It was close to midnight when the power went out. The lights snapped off so suddenly that Lena screamed, stumbling into me in the dark. Rain hammered the roof in heavy sheets. The house vibrated with each crack of thunder. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and flicked it on, the narrow beam cutting through the shadows like a blade. Lena clutched my arm, her breathing sharp and rapid. "It's him," she whispered. "He always waits for storms. He knows they cover noise." My heart thudded painfully. "Stay close," I told her. We moved quietly through the house, checking windows, locking what was already locked, listening for anything beyond the roar of rain. For a moment I hoped she was wrong, that maybe the power outage was just the storm, that maybe, just maybe, we had one more night of peace. Then came the sound, a slow, deliberate crunch of gravel outside the front door. My blood froze. The flashlight trembled in my hand. Lena's nails dug into my skin. We moved backward together, step by step, not daring to breathe too loudly. Another footstep followed the first, then another. Whoever it was took their time, savouring each movement like they wanted us to hear, like they wanted us afraid. The porch creaked, then the doorknob turned. A soft click echoed through the house, louder than the thunder. Someone was testing the lock. Lena whimpered, covering her mouth with both hands. I pulled her toward the hallway, pushing her behind me, gripping the fireplace poker I had kept nearby since the first night he came. My heart pounded so violently I could feel it in my throat. The doorknob rattled again, harder. Then came the voice. Mia's mother. His tone was different now, colder yet oddly patient. "Open the door." Mia. My breath caught. He had used the name my daughter gave Lena. My fists went numb. He wasn't guessing. He knew. My daughter had crossed paths with him, somehow, some way, and this man wasn't just hunting Lena, he was hunting whoever helped her. Lena clung to me, trembling violently. Her whisper was barely audible. "He saw us at the bus station. He saw your daughter talking to me. He must have followed her. He knows everything." Thunder cracked overhead, rattling the walls. The doorknob twisted once more, then stopped. Silence, the kind that swallows everything. Then his voice came again, quieter this time. "You think you're protecting her, but you don't understand the truth. She didn't tell you everything." I swallowed hard. "What truth?" He chuckled, soft, amused, cruel. "Ask your daughter what she did. Ask her how she got the money she gave Lena. Ask her why she ran." My heart stuttered. Before I could respond, a loud bang shook the door, his fist slamming into the wood hard enough to make the frame tremble. Lena cried out, burying her face in my shoulder. I held her tightly, my own fear twisting into something sharper. He hit the door again, and again, each slam harder than the last. The lock groaned under the pressure. Another strike might break it. Then, suddenly, the pounding stopped. His voice came one last time, low and deliberate. "I'll be back, and when I come, I won't knock." His footsteps retreated slowly, fading into the storm until we could no longer hear him. But the silence he left behind felt worse than the noise. We waited, paralysed, listening for the sound of the truck. When the engine finally started in the distance, relief washed over me, but only for a moment, because one thing was now painfully clear. This wasn't just Lena's nightmare. My daughter was tangled in it too, and the only way to protect either of them was to unearth the truth they both feared to tell. Sleep never returned that night. Lena sat curled on the couch, knees tucked under her chin, staring at the door as if it might explode inward at any second. I paced the living room in slow circles, listening to the storm fade into a dull, dripping quiet. But the silence didn't ease anything. It sharpened every fear, every thought, every unanswered question. My daughter. He had said her name. Not her real one, but the one she used when she was trying to escape herself. Mia. Hearing it from his mouth felt like someone twisting a knife inside me. Somehow she had brushed against this darkness. Somehow she had stepped into the same path Lena had barely survived. I couldn't ignore that anymore. At sunrise, I made a choice. I picked up my phone and dialed her number again. This time I didn't expect her to answer, but after the third ring, she did. Her voice was hushed, breathless, as if she were hiding. "Mom?" The sound of that word nearly broke me. "Where are you?" I whispered. A pause stretched long and thin before she said, "I can't tell you, not yet." My throat tightened. "Sweetheart, listen to me. I know about Lena. I know she came to me because of you, and I know the man looking for her. He's been here. He knows your name." Her sharp inhale cut through the line. "He came to the house? Mom, no, you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be anywhere near him." Her panic shook me. "Tell me what's going on," I demanded softly. Another long silence, then her voice cracked. "I tried to help her. I saw him hit her in the parking lot weeks ago. I followed them, called an ambulance when she ran. He saw me, he chased me. I didn't go home because I thought I'd lead him to you." My free hand gripped the counter to stay upright. "You were protecting me," I whispered, "all this time." She let out a shaky breath. "I messed everything up. I tried to get Lena out. I gave her all the money I had, but he kept coming, and I got involved with people I shouldn't have, people he owed." That sentence hung in the air like thunder. "Mum, he's dangerous because of more than what he did to her." Before I could ask anything else, she said the words that stole the air from my lungs. "He's coming for you because he thinks I took something from him." My heart lurched. "What did you take?" I whispered. "A beat. 2. "Evidence," she breathed. "A hard drive, proof of everything he's done. I was going to turn it in, but I ran, and now he thinks you have it." A cold wave washed over me. I didn't have it, but he wouldn't believe that. "Where are you?" I asked again. "Please, come home. We'll figure it out. Together." She hesitated, and for a moment I thought she might say yes. Instead, she whispered, "I can't, not yet. But Mom, I'm coming soon, just hold on, and whatever you do, don't open the door for anyone." The line went dead, and in the quiet that followed, the sound of tyres crunching gravel outside made my blood run cold. He was back. The sound of tyres on gravel felt louder than it should have, rolling through the walls like a warning. Lena shot up from the couch, her eyes wide and unfocused, as if her mind had already leapt to the worst possibility. I motioned for her to stay quiet, my own pulse thundering in my ears. Slowly, carefully, I peeked through the smallest crack in the curtain. A dark truck sat at the end of the driveway, headlights off, engine rumbling like something alive. He hadn't even bothered to hide this time. He wanted us to know he was there. He wanted fear to soften us before he made his move. I stepped back from the window, forcing my breath into something steady. Lena whispered, "We need to run!" But there was nowhere to go. We were surrounded by open fields and narrow roads, exactly the kind of place a predator prefers. "No," I whispered back. "We stay inside. We wait." The words felt flimsy, but they were all I had. My phone was still in my hand. I dialed 911, praying someone would answer. This time, a dispatcher picked up, and I quickly explained the situation. She promised officers were on the way, but her voice carried the same doubt I felt deep inside, whether they'd get here fast enough. A knock echoed through the house. Not violent this time, gentle, rhythmic, almost polite. That was worse. That meant confidence. That meant he knew something we didn't. Then his voice came through the door, calm and chilling. "I know you're in there, and I know she called you, Mia's mother." My breath hitched. He wasn't speaking to me like I was a stranger anymore. He was speaking as if we were already entangled in the same nightmare. "Just give me what she took," he said softly, "and no one gets hurt." I swallowed hard. "We don't have anything." A pause, then a low chuckle. "You really think she didn't leave it with you?" My stomach tightened. For one terrifying second, doubt flickered. Did she? Had my daughter slipped something into the house during the days before she left? Before I could think it through, Lena clutched my arm. "He won't leave," she whispered. "Not without blood." The doorknob turned. The lock strained. Then, sirens. Distant but growing louder. The truck engine roared to life, headlights flashing on. He didn't run far, just far enough. As the police car screeched up the road, I realised something cold and certain. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of a war we hadn't chosen, and my daughter was still out there, alone, hunted, and holding the truth that could get all of us killed.